Hear me well? Okay, awesome. Yes, now I see.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee Time with Kauffman, the comfortable place to talk about women's leadership. Today's show was pre-recorded and we are talking to Sama Morsy about women's leadership. Hi, Sama.
Hi, Maria. Nice to have me here today.
Thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
Sama is a petroleum engineer specialist. She has published more than 25 peer review and Society of Petroleum Engineer papers. She has filed for 4 pending patents to optimize shale development. She initiated and led the high-profile Pressure Protect Performance Improvement Project. She co-developed the 3-phase well testing method. She developed the productivity decline diagnostic workflow. She developed a shale basin level digital tool to analyze fracture-driven interactions between wells. And she has led the dynamic reservoir characterization study of the Brazil pre-salt Chevron blocks. Before we get into Sama's story of leadership, my name is Maria Kauffman and I'm a life coach. And today I am drinking some red raspberry tea. What are you drinking, Sama?
Green tea.
Awesome. So great to have you here. So great to be talking about women's leadership. Help get us started on what life was like for you as a little kid. What were your early signs of genius?
Well, that's a tough one. But yeah, when I was like in primary school, everybody was like noticing that I'm very good at mathematics and, all kind of related to science and all of that. And I remember one day, or usually that was like what was happening, like if I given like a question about mathematics like multiplications or anything like subtract or do anything, usually the kids they write down when you get the quiz and give the answer. I do everything in my mind and then I give the answer. That was like 6-7 years old, so that was like an alarming to my teacher, like pay attention to this kid. I mean, she has somehow certain skills that we can help her to to advance. And I was like being like mentored by them, like they were giving me actually extra time, like like what do you want exactly to you wanted to do as a little kid, like giving me more of kind of these sessions to me. And I was like, why I'm special at the time, like it's like usually you give a special session to like a kid that is not performing good. But what I noticed from there was really kind of like a sponsorship, that when I grew up I understood like this is really sponsorship, like bringing you to certain meetings where like when we have a special guest, so I'm the one who gonna present the school and all of that. And they were like preparing me for that, but I was like at that age I didn't really realize too much of that. Growing little bit up to the also the secondary school was also kind of continuation. And I start to, because we start to get more kind of mathematics, heavy kind of stuff, so you start to show more of your talent. And at that time I start to hear my teacher calling me the queen of mathematics and all kinds of stuff. I was like, wow.
That's an early title.
Yeah, I mean, at that, I mean, little age, you would like, everybody was like kind of like they kind of ranked the student for each subject. And I was like all the time with mathematics and kind of, that kind of science. So that was really cool at early age to recognize that, or having people recognizing in you, indeed.
Yeah, very nice. Was it fun for you?
I love it. I love it because I also realized that later that I do have passion for mathematics and science. As a kid, I always were interested most of the time in more sophisticated scientific things and all of that kind of stuff. And that's why even when I try to study a subject or anything, I kind of think in a scientific way more than kind of the academic way of doing things. So all of my like colleagues and everybody was like, review or study what the teacher was telling them to do. But in my case, I was like, I'm determining what I wanted to study. Even if the teacher say, okay, focus on such and such and such chapters, I will go ahead and read everything. And at the end of the day, I have more knowledge and I can answer the questions of the exams if it is reason that. But I had that, kind of
Drive.
passion to learn more about mathematics and science and all kind of these subjects. It just as my personal habit. I mean, has nothing to do with learning. But later on, I'm glad that I capitalized on that. I mean, I get to do something with it.
Right. So that was like early elementary school, certainly through some of your schooling. What did it start to look like by the time you got to, I'll say, high school? And yeah, let's go there.
Before we go to high school, at the last, I would say, year of my primary school, secondary school, I start to actually question the equations that we are having in mathematics and algebra. And I was like,
What?
well, why we calculate the triangle area in that way? We can calculate it in this way, in that way. And sometimes I say, well, there is a missing, part here that, is not being reported or so. And I also start to provide a different solution for the same problem. So usually when you're giving a problem, especially when you have, you do a lot of iterations, you can take 10 steps, you can take 5 steps, you can 2 steps in order to get the solution. So I was actually giving these kind of different methods.
Talk about
exactly
what being advanced. Like that's super advanced.
So that was the last year of my secondary school. When I get to high school, I start to get pushing that more. I was like questioning more and start to question everything that why this is the method that everybody's using. And even for gravity, we're thinking like, why we calculate this way? Everything that I would get, but it has to be like equation and has to be derivation, and I go into that kind of loop. And that's what I actually was very determined also in high school to take only classes into mathematics, which is basically preparing me to get into engineering school. So we had the option in high school. It was you be in a STEM or you be in just a regular one. So I was like very determined. I want a STEM and I want engineering. I don't want to, like be an MD or anything else, because you would have different actually classes to take. So I was very determined at the time.
Wow. So, and it sounds like, at least from those early years, the teachers were very supportive.
Yes.
Did you find that even through high school?
Definitely. At that time, we were actually in every school, you find like the ratio is like 50 to 50 females and males. Oh. So you feel it's very normal, we're going to talk later on when I get to the college and I suddenly see something different. But until that age, I was like thinking that we all are the same numbers. So I'm expecting to see doctors, engineers, females, males, from all of them the same. I mean, I haven't thought at the time that there is a discipline that I cannot think of that only have male only or female only. At that time, I was completely under the perception that it's very normal to have 50-50 everywhere.
Yeah, and you can do anything you want.
Exactly, yes.
So was life like all mathematics to you? Or, when you weren't in school, what were your other interests? Or were you always in books? Help us understand what it was like for you.
So I was kind of, the people that when you are getting like the top of the class, of your class, so people somehow take a perception about you that you are not social or something like that. But I was completely the opposite. I was socializing with everybody. I was having fun beside, studying. And to their surprise, I was not studying for long hours like what others are doing, but I had a systematic way of doing my stuff. Like I never miss a class or a lecture or anything like that. So that was for me, it's like a key commitment that you get into that place, you have to be showing up yourself and taking the notes by yourself. And in my entire education, I never asked anybody for a makeup lecture or anything like that. So
Wow.
it was like, but I was a reference for others. Like, when somebody they don't they
Oh.
miss the lecture, they come and they know that she gonna be always there.
You can be the teacher.
Yes, and not only that, I always like to be also in the front lines. So people they like to be in the back to hide, to do whatever, but I would like to be very focused. And the other thing that also helped me as well a lot, I'm kind of person that I like to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes people, they think that I'm challenging them because I do ask the question that is really, really kind of tricky to the presenter or the teacher. Some, they really like that in me, and I still get comments right now and feedback from a professor that I attended a class for like 10 years ago, and so, and I hear back like, oh, she was asking very good questions. And you know what, when I ask a question, I say, why they do it this way? Even in technology, why they do it this way? Why they don't do it this way? And that professor was always telling me that actually this is very good question, and indeed it's amazing idea, but it has been done 30 years ago.
Oh.
Well, at least I thought about it. So
Interesting. Hold on just a second.
sure. I cannot hear you. Okay.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Oh my gosh. So there's the dog has a little visitor. I apologize for that.
No problem.
So back to the interview. So you were very curious, because sometimes asking, a question can be pretty intimidating to someone.
Exactly.
Based on maybe, a lot of different things. So it sounds like, once again, you are always in this space of professors that are very open and willing to entertain your amazing level of curiosity. So that is so, so cool. And you're social.
Can we pause for just 1 minute, please?
Yes.
My baby.
Okay. Oh, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
1 minute, 1 minute. Just 30 minutes, okay? Sorry, Maria.
That
Being
is
a mom.
Yep, you got to be what you got to be. I love
Exactly.
it.
Multitasking.
Awesome. That's right. Always. Both of us, right?
Exactly.
It's like we are real people. And
that's how I see us. Right? We are the real version of human in workplace.
Yeah, and we juggle a lot.
We do everything at the same time.
I know, it's a perfect example in real lifetime.
Correct.
So cool.
Yes.
So what I'm finding, your mind was extraordinary. And it sounds like you're in really cool opportunities where people allowed you to foster that curiosity and grow it. That's really important. And you were social. So you maximized your time. You didn't have to work always in math. And you expanded your experience in life in lots of different ways. So what was high school like for you?
I felt like it was the right kind of transition between the little kid that is just, kind of learning about everything. And I felt like I started to be very determined in high school. I start to know myself better, and I start to take the first decision in my life, what you want it to be, because depending on your answer, your classes will be actually determined. So you get to make the right choice. And there was like at the time, if you cannot make it to engineering, there is a big cap to which school you're gonna go. So there was like you have to be very very careful if you can make it to that high score at high school. Um, High score to get actually to the engineering that you want, because if you will not get there, I know that I will get to some college that I'm not really interested in. And that was kind of a big decision to make. Are you ready to make it and committed to make it or no? So I felt like this is the first time in my life that my parents will give me a decision at that time that you own your career. And that's how I started the first time learning about owning my career and being committed and just deliver to what I wanted to be. So it was exactly in that case. It was very intense kind of 3 years of education in the high school, especially the last 2 years, because our ranking was actually based on the last 2 years. So you have to be very like kind of intense in getting everything and having everything set up. And not only that, so I was also preparing myself for actually learning about which schools, we have a lot of different engineering schools, like in Cairo, in different places. So I was actually reading and asking my network, which one should I go and which departments are here and here. So I felt that early on that I'm taking actually also a forward thinking step, that I start to do it at early stage in my actually career, by doing that and getting myself ready to where I should be going. And at that time, I start to, and that was the first time in my life. I watched by coincidence just a movie. It's called For Men Only. And that movie was talking about petroleum engineers, females, that they got offered to work in a company, oil and gas company, in Cairo, in the office, which is downtown, in the downtown. And they were seeing all of their colleagues, male colleagues, they go into the desert to run the wells and drilling the wells and operating them. And they were asking their management, we would like to get there to get the experience, the field experience, and observe how things are done in the field. And the manager would say, no, 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 this is very dangerous place for you as a female, and you are not allowed by the company rules at the time to go there. So that was the first time for me to see that there is really a kind of like this film engineering department that is only works for males but doesn't work for females. And the story continue in the movie, and these were two females actors. They were actually very representing a very determined woman that, okay, we are going to take a risk. And they were like a man, and they just go to the field and spend there like 2 months, 3 months there. And they were making a big discovery for the company over there during that time. And that was like the big risk. And you can see when they went to the desert there, how because they were like acting as a man, so they can see and they can hear what all their males are talking about and all of that. So it was kind of like opening eye for me that, oh, there is something only for men. And since I'm a very challenging, personality, I like actually to go into challenge. I've been satisfied like that. Some people, they call it like, why you need to suffer? Why you need to hustle in order to be satisfied? You can just go easy. But I don't know. I'm just, my standards are very high. I don't know why. But when I just, like watch this movie and I say, you know what? I wanted to be petroleum engineer, and I wanted to be able to go to the field and actually change the perspective about that this is only for males and not for females. What are we missing as females to not being there, right?
Right.
So I started to like questioning that. It's like it's something, a skill that we are missing, or just the environment is not welcoming because it is the setup of the infrastructure over there is like that. So that was like kind of
An
something that
aha
I started to
moment.
think about it.
Yeah.
And okay, once I get my marks at the high school, I say, well, I'm going to petroleum engineering. Let me discover what it looks like.
That is so fascinating. So fascinating just on many levels. Certainly that you came across that movie and that industry, because it sounded like before then it was all 50-50. You know, you kind of lived in this world where it was like, you know, hey, there's half men, half women all the time. And, you know, there's really no difference and anything is possible. And then to see that movie, was it more from a perspective of, did you see what you can contribute as a woman in petroleum? Because petroleum, you're the only petroleum engineer that I know. And partly it is a pleasure to hear your story and talk about this, because it's an interesting field to get into. So was that movie really that pivotal moment that said, this is a career direction I want to take?
Yes. So first of all, I like the when I start seeing the movie, I see that there is a lot of science behind petroleum engineering, right? So that's number one. And kind of person that I'm very, I'm very interested so much in having my work being applied. So whenever I have an idea, I like to see it applied, and I love seeing my results. That's something that I don't know. It's another second of like if anybody like taking my career like academia and PhD, they will be just around the computer and just getting the stuff to the field engineer and let them run it. But I'm kind of person that I like to go and see how it's applied in order to modify, my idea or make it a better way to, to advance the field. So that's number one. I saw a lot of science around petroleum engineering from that movie, because that was the only movie that I saw actually about an engineering subject, right? Yeah. In more details. The other thing was like, I'm kind of person that I like always to advocate for women. So early on in my career, like in high school and all of that, women at that age, and also given the culture and everything, usually they have soft voice and they are always like shy to ask questions. And I was the exceptional all the time. Like if I enter a room, I'm invited in a room, I get to have my voice heard. That's my rule. This is an opportunity for you as a female to act as a real partner in that project. And if you miss that opportunity, you are actually hurting every woman that is behind you, that is trying to get into that. Because once you get into a meeting or a discipline or anything like that, and you're not doing the stuff that can increase the chances of women to be recognized and being given more chances. So we are not adding value, and I like to add value. And since I saw that it's kind of, it hurt me first of all, as this is only for men. I don't like that. I don't have it in my dictionary at all that there is something only for men. Everything can be done by man and woman. We have different skills, and we better work together, collaborate to make it happen and make it successful. There is nothing can be successful without listening to a woman that has also some innovative ideas that can make things work better as well. So it was different angles how I thought about it, but the most motivation that I have was like, I wanted to change that. I don't want to hear this anymore. I don't want to. This is the only thing that I heard is only for men, and I don't want this to be like all the time like that.
Well, that's very interesting. So along that way, what I heard you say a couple of things. So when you talked about being a woman who walks into a room in a situation, career, work, wherever you are, you use the word partner. That was powerful. As I'm hearing you, I thought you would say leadership, but really it's like you're partnering, and you are partnering not only with the people in that room and whatever the activity is going on, but you do represent, right? All these other possibilities for anybody else who will come into that same room, in the future, or any other room on the planet, right?
Yes.
Very interesting. So I'm curious about the movie, and then how you get into college and then pave this career path. So because the movie, I imagine, showed you what it was really like to be in the environment of petroleum. And it's always a delicate environment. And that did not deter you at all. If anything, it sounded like it inspired you to pursue this. How did
Yes.
that go?
So I make my decision to get into petroleum engineering. And once I get into the department, that was I was prepared from the movie, right? I know that there were only two females and there so hundreds of engineers, male engineer. So once I get to the class, we were only five females and we're 100 males. So we're like 5% of the population of that class, right? So somehow the females that used to get into that petroleum engineering department, they were like usually have their somebody that they know that they can recommend them to get into that so they can help them later or something like that. But for my case, I was like coming with like a different perspective and different objective. I start to be also like continue being, very successful and getting my classes and everything on the top. So I reached to be the second on the class of all of these 105. And to my surprise, I found that our professors were very, very supportive to us as females, five only females. And indeed, this is also something that I learned all the time is when you speak, when you ask a question, people remember you. And even if they are giving you their back, they will say, go ahead, Sama, go ahead, ask your question. They know you and they know where you're going. And I start to not only doing that with my professor, like they start seeing that in me, but also when they bring, like external guests, I used to, this external guests, they come and give you a lecture, and usually they are from also oil companies, like service companies, and so often I ask them questions, and they don't go without talking to me after the lecture and say, this is our business card. We would love to have you working for our company once you finish your grad. So I start to have that.
Wow.
It's kind of like, okay, yeah, I mean, we can do it. So I changed it at first, like, we can be competitive in the academic way. Okay, let's raise up a little bit. Okay. So I start to also engage, as I told you, I'm not only doing like good in my classes and so, but also I'm very social and I'm very also getting into other activities. So I start to get involved with Society of Petroleum Engineers, which I publish majority of my papers in. And they usually have like a yearly paper contest, which is basically having the undergrad students, every one of them having like a project working on, and then you can present it on a country level and then on a region level. And I went all the way. I went there, the country level, which is Egypt, and then I went the Middle East. I took the second place, and being everybody was like doing simple stuff because you're undergrad, so you're not expected to do some sophisticated stuff. But indeed, my project was, as I told you before, I was challenging every equation that I take. So we have a correlation for Z factor, which is for gas compressibility. And I say, okay, well, I mean, this is the only correlation that is available for, calculating compressibility, gas compressibility. So I had my professor, he said, well, there are others. I say, well, I'm very interested to investigate all of these others and see which one is more, accurate. He said, well, I can help you, give you some data. Actual data, and you can calculate the one from the model and then compare it, and that can be good subject for your contest. And I went doing that, and I was not satisfied by only showing the comparison. I say, well, you know what, how about if I can do my own correlation, like improve it? At just undergrad, right? And he said,
Wow.
yeah, go ahead. So I used some regression technique and I add some terms to the equation to account for other factors that were not accounted in this equation. Just get it and publish my first paper undergrad.
Wow. I love how you talk about that whole thing. Like, oh, this is just what I did. That's amazing. Awesome.
So that was the case for the college. And indeed, the other milestone that I think also changed the concept of females in petroleum engineering, that I and also another colleague of mine who were in the same class, we were the first female faculty member at Cairo University in all of its history, which is almost like 100 years. So they never had female faculty member, before us. And that was a big milestone as well for us to make it for every woman who will come after us.
Yeah.
Yes, petroleum engineer can be for females from academic standpoint and can get actually to the top of it. So that was kind of number one for me to achieve.
Woohoo! Yeah, that must have felt amazing. Awesome.
Yeah, so it was really, I'd say, very encouraging also environment. So I wouldn't do that without really the support of my professor at Cairo University, especially as, you get into it and you don't have too much connection like the males, right? In that discipline, and they were giving us all of the support. And after that comes to my career, like professional career out of the school, having in academia for a couple of years. And then I say, well, I mean, yes, it's good. And I have some talent in making things simpler for students, getting them engaged and inspire them. But I'm not 100% satisfied internally. I wanted to do things in the field. I wanted to see how it looks like to operate wells and improve the productivity and do all of that. And that comes to my second, I would say, half of my career, which is in operation, where after I get my bachelor, master, and PhD, and then I said, well, that's enough for academia. I achieved a lot. I published a lot of paper. Let me go to the real business.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that movie was inside of you, right?
That's exactly the point, that the movie they were showing the real business, not just the academia. So we did. And actually before we moved this point as well, so at that time as well, when you are the first in your class, you get a call immediately after you graduate from oil and gas, national oil and gas company, asking you for interview to be hired, because they usually ask like the top 5 or 10. So I get a call at that time, and they asked me for an interview, and I say, yes, okay, yeah, I'm very interested. And after 2 days, I get a call back from the same person, say, I'm sorry, I thought that you are a man and we are not hiring women at that time, because that position, you need to spend some time in the field in order to get that position. Okay. And I was like very upset. It's not about the position itself, but about, again, this is confirming, this is the environment. This is what we need to change. So after that, maybe it was 6 months, I saw the Minister of Petroleum Engineering, and he was presenting at our university. And after his talk, I stopped him and I say, Mr. Minister, I have something that I would like to share with you. We have been told as a female that we cannot get positions as males. And that's not right, because we have the same skills. Actually, we are doing better in our, academia, than our colleagues. So it's very sad to get that, perception about our industry, that you are on the top of it, and kindly asking you to do something to change. And he said that gonna change very soon. And no surprise, he was very, very, very serious about it. And after that was 1 month, he gave order to actually open the door for all females from different actually years to apply and get jobs. And
wow.
Because it was really, imagine that if you don't know somebody, or really, it's hard, right? Because you get everything, you get all the credits, and you're in the top of the class and you don't get a job. How about a woman that actually she's average, or having average ranking? She would not be able even to compete at any level. So I was so glad to make that call to him, and it takes courage.
Oh yeah, it takes a lot of courage.
Courage to do so. But I was saying, as I told you before, I was always kind of person that is carrying over what I can do for the females that would come after me.
Yes.
I'm not only moving ahead with myself, because if it is only myself, I get actually, a position in university, and then I get a chance to go outside and do, but I know that I'm going to leave Egypt in few months, But before I leave, I wanted to do something for the other females coming after me, and also the other females that were not employed at the time.
Right. I love that. Yeah, there always seems to be a natural sisterhood. And I think, at least for me too, in reaching out to a lot of women like you and having these interviews, right away, there seems to be a magical connection where we kind of get it. We kind of understand. And on some level, I think we all agree that there is this purpose. We need to be the best versions of ourselves,
Yes.
to live into our potential, to have the courage, to have those conversations, and to go for whatever it is, your heart desires. And that's how we really make change. Awesome. So you got this guy, and the words that you use were rather important. So you really were just you were standing and advocating for, obviously, for women, but you said it in a way that opened him up and allowed him to take action.
Yes.
Awesome. So then the next thing we know, what happens?
Yeah, as I said, he opened the door to all females, and he gave order to all oil and gas companies to accept female applications. Although that at that time it was difficult to send them to the field, but at least they gave them opportunity to work from the office and do some work, and raising the percentage of females in these companies, because it's national companies. He has a power on them to do that. So that was a good call at the time.
Yeah.
Because I see now all the females graduate, they get all hired for all the companies, and none of them sitting at home compared to actually males, because now it's by qualification. It's not by a man or female anymore. And I'm always supporting that. We get to be qualified to take an opportunity. We don't need to use the gender kind of tactic to tackle anything or to get anything that is not supposed to be for us. We are qualified just to give us the opportunity to be evaluated against others. That's all we ask.
Right. Awesome. So then you eventually get into a petroleum company.
Yes. So finally, I got to petroleum company, and I worked initially for Chevron, and before that, I also worked 1 year at Egypt, and I start to see how things are doing. So I work initially, when you have a PhD, because I got PhD, so usually they put you immediately into R&D. Okay, this is where you belong, right? So I did quite well in R&D, because that's continuation of what you have to be doing. And I did some of the stuff that you mentioned, like the three phase well testing and all that kind of achievement. And then I was just like in the R&D, taking the projects from our asset teams that are running the wells. When they have a problem, they contact us and work with us to solve this problem, numerically using simulation. And I say, well, that's good, but I'm just knowing one part of the equation. I'm not involved in all of this, kind of, process. I'm doing one part, and there are other 5-10 parts that I'm missing. And still I'm not satisfied.
Wow.
I want to take a step up again and get to the real business and move to the division that actually running the wells, doing the changes. And to everybody's surprise, because they think when you are coming from R&D and you go to the real business, your mentality is not a business driven. But I approved the opposite, and I start to have a good business conversation with my network, and I start to get business acumen, kind of understanding. I start to know the financial terms and use it. And this is very important because terminology makes you a person to trust, right? You are sharing common, things with the people that are running the business, and I start to change completely the way I present my work. At R&D, you would focus the most on the process, accuracy, and showing the error chart, and all of that. When I go to the business, and I used to, for the R&D, you used to have a presentation like 30 slides or so. When I go to the real business, my slides are only 5 slides. And I go directly to the business. I show only the part of the R&D and all of that in one slide or 2 slides, we are doing good in the in the academic and all of that kind of stuff. But let's go to the business. I start to learn the other transition to the financial business, like when you are engineer and you are giving simulation numbers, like how much you're going to improve the productivity of the well. If you stop at here, you are in the R&D. But if you take a step further, and how much you can save the company by doing that, or by not doing that, you take really an extra step to the business. And at that time, I start to present to the upper management, where they were very interested in my talks, because it's a business talk. It's, you're telling them, if we do such and such and change the way that we drill our wells or frack our wells, we can have 20% improvement in rate of return. And you will never hear an engineer doing R&D aware what is rate of return, what is kind of this stuff, right? So I start to get into like these kind of financial terms that's really making my talk looks very interesting to the upper management. And then they start to believe in you and believe in your ideas. In the beginning, when you are in R&D and you submit an idea to our colleagues in the in the asset teams that are running the wells, they will say, well, your idea is good, but you're gonna improve my productivity by 20%. But when I run the economics, that's actually gonna give me only 1%. I need a break even of 5% or so, right? And I had no idea. You maybe can work on a project for 2-3 years, and because you are missing the part of the economics, your project will be on the shelf once you finish it, because you didn't get it. I mean, you didn't include that economics. But once I start to include it, that helped me to screen out of projects that actually has low value to the business. So there is no time to waste here. You need to get to focus on how to make money, and you need to even exceed the break even in order to make money as a company. So all of that, I wouldn't be aware how to transfer my knowledge into the business without getting a real, I would say, assignment in running the wells and having an idea from the beginning, go all the way to the field. And that was my opportunity to go to the field, right? And that was I was trying to prove at the end of the day. And actually going to the field as expert and telling the service company that we are hiring, okay, this is what you should be doing. If you exceed, this is what, and I give them the kind of the operational standard, what to follow in order to get the results as I want. So
wow.
made it at the end.
Wow. Right. So there's this, like you had mentioned, there's this R&D piece, just really, basically academic, right? Scientific, all the math, the numbers, but in a conceptual environment. So then you marry that with the field, because all that R&D, if it doesn't come out in the real world, right, it doesn't make sense. But then there's the business acumen, the financials. This is the real impact. This is the reason why businesses even want to entertain the ideas. So can you share a story or anything from your perspective of just what it was like for you to be in the field? What did you see? How was that experience for you? What did you enjoy? What was shocking?
I was actually, to my surprise, it was really very cool experience. So I went to the field, and I was actually running one of my ideas, which is the one that you mentioned, the pressure protect. And I went to the field, the location, and I have the overall, the first time in my life wearing it, having the steel shoes the first time, and getting into that kind of, of the safety moment, and learning about, the logistics of the place.
Yeah.
Then start talking to the company man over there, and also the service company that we are hiring to do that job. And I start like the discussion with them. And the first time in my life, like hearing about oil and gas in the oil field, or in the when you are in the field itself, they say, well, females, they don't really take their opinion, or so, because you're not coming from, you cannot compete with somebody that spent 20 years in the field or so. But once I start talking to them about the projects, and I tell them, okay, how are you going to do when you reach a pressure of that and that? They say, well, I'm going to just shut in the pump. And I say, no, I don't want you to shut in the pump because this will happen and such and such. And he started listening to me and say, well, I mean, you know what? I haven't think about it before in that sense. And definitely you're bringing a new knowledge here for us to do things in a good way. And I say, well, I mean, it will not really help me to get something. If you shut in the pump, I will lose all the data that I have collected before and all of that. But they were not aware because they are just doing that job for every client like this. And it was, and again, it comes to the academic or the R&D space here, because that's what helped me to kind of plan the field trial in a scientific way. And that's another kind of skill that sometimes we forget when people they look, how come you make it successful in the field if you haven't actually worked in the field before? And that's because we are very good at doing literature review, understanding, making sense of of the performance with the input parameters. So you are marrying your academia and R&D experience to the field to make the best out of it. And that was not something being done before. You always see R&D in their own kind of world, and the operating fields in their own world, and you don't have kind of that mixing in between. So I make that mix, and they were really pleased to follow my procedures. And it was successful pilots where we get exactly what we wanted to do, and we get not only successing in doing the pilot, but also because we take the right measures and we follow the steps and everything, we make it economic at the end of the day, and we save the company millions of dollars for that kind of initiative. So it was, I would say,
Wow.
it just you have to go with a base. You need to go there with knowledge. If you don't have that knowledge and going there, start to talking to them, and if your talk or your reasons doesn't make sense to them, then they lose the confidence in you. But I was kind of very confident in what I wanted to do and just follow what I want and
I
just get.
would say so. That's a lot of confidence. And that must have been really satisfying. But was there any kind of moment where you kind of tied this realization that, in high school, you saw this movie for men only, right?
Yes.
And it really sparked and lit a fire within you. And then years later, you find yourself out in the field and you're having this interaction with someone who may not, understand the potential that you're bringing, but you collaborate and you work together and you kind of leave that experience with an understanding and progress. Was there a moment where you were like, oh my gosh, that movie really did something to me?
At that moment, I was like closing the pain in the chest.
Oh, it was like, like
But
sealed.
you see, you carry that pain because you still see it everywhere, right? And you hear it from different countries and everything. But in order to go there and you lead that initiative, and those field people they follow your procedure, you close that door. You feel that you achieve what you wanted to achieve. Now I change the perception for those people that are running their this equipment over there. They trust a woman, they listen to you, and actually not only that, I build also connection with them. So those service company that they usually come and just go, but this person, he was like, well, you know what, tell us what we can do actually to help you more. And I say, well, I need this data. He said, we usually give it like after the day done. I say, there's a way that you can send it to me like every hour. He said, I will do it for you. So you build that
Yeah.
connection, and you get the most out of it by trust.
Oh, yeah. Well, I like to say more respect, more joy. And clearly you, earned the respect. And then there was mutual respect. And there's got to be a lot of joy there. Awesome. So, Sama, what are your ideas about, you're paving a way, you're making changes in the world in so many ways, not only just in petroleum and what you bring, from all the amazing achievements that you've done, but even from a woman's perspective, you are changing the landscape. You are, obviously contributing. What does the future look like when more women can do what you're doing?
I really am, and I'm trying to work that out as well because I'm also involved in diversity and inclusion, kind of initiatives in getting more women into the workplace. And not only because we see, and that's how I see the business going right now. When we enter oil and gas company, we enter as 50-50. But with the time, career progression, you see the men are going that way and women making very baby steps. And at some point, they are stagnated and they cannot go further. And coming back at, we entered 50-50. But when you look at all of the majority of oil and gas or energy even companies, you will find that at the top, you have barely the maximum 20% women. And we are trying to change that. We are trying to help make women understanding what are the tactics and what are the skills that they need to actually learn in order to be thought for these positions. Business, we talk about business acumen, and that was one of the most important, I would say, ever skill that I work in myself, and I try to be more interested in getting more into that. And I'm trying to tell that to every woman. Nobody will hear you if you're only speaking science in energy companies or any company that is making money by running stuff, right? You get to learn how to convert your technical work into financial, work. That's what exactly the company gonna benefit out of your work. Not only that, in your performance reviews, right? You tend to see, and it comes from all angles. You start to see women only, and I've seen and I've reviewed men and women, and I can comment into that since I was involved in the DNI, and I see how women are writing their stuff. They're very, very honest to their stuff. In technical work is technical work, and they are just translating their work in technical terms. And what they don't know is you are actually most of the time evaluated by non-technical person. Even if you think that your supervisor, the technical person that is evaluating you, there is of him that he knows that little about technical and he knows that much about finance. So in order to make yourself getting to all of these, or climbing the ladder, you need first to make that switch. Understand what is the impact of your work in the company financial, and speak it, not only write it. Speak it and put it in your slide deck, and never finish a project with only recommendation on a technical space. Take some effort, put some effort, and learn about how to convert that, even using some assumption. And you will be surprised that even the financial guys have a lot of assumption around economics. So there is nothing wrong with that. It's fine. Everybody, as long as you state this assumption, because sometimes, females, they say, well, I'm afraid to use a number that is not really practical. Well, ask the expert, right? That's number one. And with assumption, people will know. I put a number for example, for oil price $50, right? And another person put 60 and 70. The results will be actually evaluated based on your assumption. So that's number one. Never feel like, you take a step back because you don't know the ranges, or you don't know the field well. The other thing, advice that I always also advise females to do, take different assignments in non-technical space.
Yes.
That's diversity in experience that you might think that it will not add to you when you are thinking right now, but absolutely it will add a lot to your career later on. Take assignment in strategy, take assignments in planning, take assignments in finance, even if it is a short assignment. Learn the terminology of each of these, division will make you actually very unique leader, and it will open your mind, it will enlarge your network, it will make you more confident, because whenever you go into a meeting, this meeting is not only people like you. You will have different backgrounds. And if you have assignment in all of these backgrounds, you can have mutual respect from every of these departments that you are dealing with. So there is different kind of things that we are working on the DNI space in order to enable women. First, they know their value, because there is a lot of another things about women is we are not really good in putting a confidence in our value and speaking it and asking in promotion that reflected that, right? You see positions that more than 80% that you can do it, and this 20% put you aside that I don't want to do it because I might be evaluated on the 20%. And on the other side, you see your male colleague, he gets to an area that he has nothing, no experience into it. And the management, they call this person, he's the man, he's the person that gonna do it, he can do anything, right? But because we are so much attached to what we know and working only in our comfort zone, that's holding us back as a female, can in the energy industry. So open yourself up to all of this opportunity, and always, again, first important thing that I always tell every female, uh, fill your plate by yourself. Don't wait for somebody else to fill your plate, because he might put too much into your plate that you will be unsuccessful to do the job, or he can put too much little that will show you as a lower performance. But when you fill your plate with yourself, you put the strengths that you know, so you're gonna excel. So
oh my gosh, that was amazingly beautiful, right? Because what I'm hearing you say too is once you understand, it's a give and take between business and personal, but finding the value in the company that you work for is also an exercise in finding your own personal value. So it's basically like you can get paid to increase your own value, but you have to be open to it. And you do have to fill your own plate. Wow, that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much, Sama. That was like super intense and something everything but one, I believe, needs to hear. So help us. Do you have an inspiring quote for the audience?
On the same lines, I always like this quote: there is no power equal to a woman determined to rise.
Ooh, I do like that. It is
absolutely. I always
absolutely.
remind myself with that. We need to be resilient. Okay.
That gave me chills. That's powerful. It makes us unstoppable, right?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, Sama, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was amazing to get your expertise, your inspirations. Thank you for talking about the movie For Men Only, because, clearly you are changing the world by being who you are. How do people get in touch with you, and how would you like to connect with people?
So anybody can connect with me through my LinkedIn, profile. So it's open to anybody. Yes.
Yeah, I will make sure that I have your LinkedIn in the show notes so that people have an easy way to get in contact with you.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much.
It was amazing meeting you today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Coffee Time with Kauffman is the comfortable place to discuss women's leadership, because I'm on a mission to help the world discover the truth about what women are capable of. When you are ready for your leadership mastery makeover, go to mariakaufman.com and click on Consult a Coach, where you can schedule time with me for an empowerment session. Have a great week. Enjoy your adventures and journey responsibly. And Sama, once again, thank you so much for the journey that you took us on today.
You are welcome, and I hope everybody enjoyed the talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.